Welcome to today's video. I'm your coach Grant, former powerlifting competitor, online fitness coach, and today we're going to be mastering the fundamentals of your workouts. As you should know by now, workouts are not just a random compilation of exercises to complete and reps and weight to choose at random. There's a very specific and scientific approach that we're using in your workouts to measure your progress. So today we're going to be talking about the core principles that dictate whether you're actually building muscle and getting stronger, or if you're just spinning your wheels and not getting anywhere. So if you've ever asked yourself, how much weight do I use, or why am I not seeing progress, this is the video for you. So let's get into it. First, we're going to talk about your sets, reps, and weight, and what the appropriate weight would be for the target rep range that you choose. In your workout, you're going to see the exercise, sets, reps, and weight. Sets are the amount of times that you repeat the exercise. Weight is the resistance that you're using in pounds or kilograms. And the reps is typically portrayed as a range of reps to fail within. Meaning, if you see 10 to 15 reps, you don't just choose whether you do 10, 11, 12, all the way to 15. The goal is to choose a weight that allows you to complete the target reps and fail within those target reps. Think of it in terms of reps in reserve, or RIR. This is a measurement we use to guesstimate how many reps we have left in the tank. So typically with compound movements like bench presses, barbell squats, or deadlifts, you're going to want to have between 1 to 3 reps left in the tank. Where if you're training or isolating smaller muscle groups like biceps, you want to train with 0 reps in reserve. This ensures that you have enough mechanical tension for muscular growth. Now let's talk about the rep ranges and their goals. Know that different rep ranges emphasize different adaptations. So if you're training within 1 to 3 reps, you're focusing on explosive strength and power. If you're training within 4 to 6 reps, you're training mainly for strength. If you're training within 6 to 15 reps, then you're training for hypertrophy or muscle growth. This is the sweet spot, and this is what we want to focus on if you're trying to transform your body. And finally, if you're training with 20 reps plus, you're actually training for muscular endurance. So you're not going to see too much muscular size as a result of that. Now, let's talk about your rest time. The common mistake. When trying to lose fat, many people mistakenly turn their muscle building workouts into pure aerobic sessions. They cut rest times too short, reducing mechanical tension and focusing on feeling a burn. So let's explain what an aerobic workout actually is. So aerobic-based workouts are focusing on high rep ranges, minimal muscle tension, so basically lightweight, fast-paced movements, and minimal rest time between sets. So the emphasis is more on cardiovascular endurance, not necessarily strength or muscle hypertrophy. It's great for conditioning, but less effective for muscle mass. Now let's explain what a muscle building or hypertrophy workout is. Hypertrophy or muscle building workouts force you to lift heavier weights that cause you to hit muscular failure within a smaller, more targeted rep range. Take 6 to 15 reps, for example. This requires adequate rest time between sets because you're really working on those muscles. Anywhere between 1 to 3 minutes is a good rest time. 2 to 3 minutes for bigger compound movements, and between 1 to 2 minutes for isolation exercises or exercises with a lighter load. Now let's talk about the one most important tool that we use to measure your progress, and that is progressive overload. Now, building muscle means building strength. This is a fundamental truth when trying to sculpt your body. And to build more muscle, you have to progressively challenge what your muscles are capable of. Your body only adapts and grows if it's forced to. That's why it's crucial not to just choose a random weight every week you go to the gym. This is about doing better than last week, not doing the same or not even knowing what you did last week. The key is to progressively overload, not progressively stagnate. So don't just choose a weight at random. Your goal is to challenge what you did last week in a systematic way. This requires tracking your workouts, your reps, your set, and your weight every week. So here's a few ways that we can progressively overload each week. First, we can improve on our form. You can control the weight better, make sure that you're not wobbly in a Bulgarian split squat. You can slower the eccentric, for example, taking 3 full seconds to lengthen the bicep on the way down, or you can achieve a greater range of motion. If before you were doing half squats, now you could do a full range squat. So that's how you could progress with your form alone. The second way we can progress is to do more reps in the previous week. If last week you did 8 reps, then doing just 1 more rep with the same weight is still progress. This is typically the easiest and most sustainable way to overload the muscle. And finally, the third way to progressively overload is to lift more weight than the previous week. For someone who's less experienced, you may notice that your weight's going to come up a little bit faster, where if you're more experienced, experience and have a few years under your belt, it may take a little bit longer to incrementally increase that weight. Here's a checklist that I use to ensure that I'm progressively overloading each week. Number 1, I focus on my form only. Say I'm doing Bulgarian split squats and I'm really wobbly on the way down and on the way up. Then all I'm going to do is focusing on mastering every rep within my rep range without wobbling. And only when I master that exercise will I move on to step 2. Now that my form is on point, I'm going to focus on doing more reps than the previous week. Here's how I do that. Say for example, my rep range is 10 to 15 reps. Now if I can't even achieve the 10th rep, the weight is too heavy for me and I have to lighten it up a little bit. Remember, 10 reps is the minimum I have to achieve in this range. Where on the other hand, if you're doing more than 15 reps, 16 plus, then the weight is too light for you, in which case it's time to increase the weight and start back at that 10th rep again. And finally, when I can do 15 reps for all 3 sets, I'm going to progressively overload by going up 5 or 10 pounds more and starting back at 10 reps again. This is about gradually increasing your strength over time. You don't just need to focus on lifting heavier first. Doing more reps or mastering your form is still an effective way to progressively overload. Now, let's talk about breaking through workout plateaus. Plateau number 1, I'm not seeing any new muscle. If you're not seeing more muscle mass and you are lean enough to be able to see that, then oftentimes that's due to insufficient training volume. So if you're not tracking your workouts, your weight, your reps and sets, and or inadequate nutrition. So maybe you're not eating enough calories or you're not even tracking it, which makes your results just as good as a flip of a coin. It could also mean that you have poor recovery or lack of sleep. So a combination of those 3 things or any one of those could be grounds for not seeing sufficient change. If you're not sleeping enough, you're not recovering and healing those broken down muscles, which leaves you sore for even longer than if you had a good night's sleep. If you're not eating enough protein or don't even know how much you're having, then this is another huge indicator as to why you're not seeing more muscle. Protein is responsible for building muscle, and if you don't have enough of it, you're not going to build. So to avoid these issues, review your training log on a weekly basis, ensure that you're progressively overloading and doing more than last week or better than last week, check your daily calories and macros, and block out that 7 to 9 hours for sleep. Remember, you're placing a higher demand on your body since you're getting back into shape. That extra demand is going to require more recovery. It's as simple as that. Plateau number 2, you're not getting stronger and you're stuck on the weight or the reps. The most common reason is a lack of consistent progressive overload. I cannot state that enough. It means that your body adapted to your workouts and the amount of stimulus. It could also be insufficient recovery as well. Obviously, if you don't get enough sleep, you're not going to be quite as energized to train the next day. So if you want to improve your strength, lift more weight, do more reps, or get better at each exercise, then make sure that you're applying those 3 progressive overload methods I mentioned before. Also consider reevaluating your nutrition, your sleep, or even take a deload week or a little bit of time off to give you that extra rest your body needs, especially if you have a super demanding schedule. Plateau number 3, dealing with non-responder muscles. An example of this is if you're trying to isolate a certain muscle but just can't feel it. So say you're trying to target your lower abs when doing a leg raise, then if you don't feel your lower abs, this is an example of a non-responder muscle. So if certain muscles seem stubborn or you have a harder time with that mind to muscle connection, slow down the movement and really focus on the muscle working. So hold your form and resist the eccentric. The slower you go, the more tension you feel in the muscle and the more muscle you'll build. Plateau number 4, let's talk about poor mobility. If you can't hold at the bottom of a squat without falling over, then this is an example of poor mobility. Basically, instead of targeting the quads and the muscles at work, we try to win the squat by any means necessary. So we try to get depth rather than targeting the muscles at work. Where proper form will allow you to keep your torso completely straight all the way through, poor mobility may force you to get depth by rounding the back, folding forward, and not properly opening up the hips. Basically, you cheat the movement to get it over with, rather than honoring the appropriate form that allows you to properly target those muscles. So at this point, we need to start making some modifications in our exercise selection. For example, going from half rep squats to a single leg Bulgarian squat, and make it easier to get that range of motion. When you have poor mobility, it means that there's a number of factors to consider. Your groin muscles could be super tight, forcing your knees to collapse in. Your glutes may be too weak for maximum squat depth, and your weak core may force force you to round your back or fold over. So if we work backwards, we would have to do some extra work on strengthening our core, strengthening our glutes, and stretching out our groin muscles. This is how you get better access to mastering your squat. Just remember that each individual exercise has its own needs. And if you're not sure what that is, send me a DM and we'll talk about it. And that's a wrap. So in this video, we covered the reps versus the appropriate weight, adequate rest times, progressive overload, and how to break plateaus. These are the pillars of sustainable, effective muscle growth. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button, subscribe, and follow for more.